we see this from afar, and so we take a look at the American legal system, and we think, well, that obviously is very different than ours. I mean, what kind of issues do we have? But it's my understanding that even coming down from some of our higher courts, when it comes to things like racial profiling, are we now changing the way in which we are seeing that implicated or implemented in Canada?
I don't know if I'd necessarily say the way that we're changing it. I think the way I'd choose to phrase it is it continues to be a real issue. So by way of an example only, if we go back on the matter of racial profiling, you may remember Dee Brown played for the Raptors many years back, and he was stopped and charged with a drinking and driving offense, and there was issues raised at trial that it was an arbitrary detention. There was no real cause for him being stopped other than the fact that he was Black. And that was argued at trial, and the defense put it forward, and the judge didn't find it. And if I recall it right, the judge literally said to the defense, "You should apologize to the officer for even suggesting it." Well, the matter went to the Court of Appeal, and ultimately they found a basis to say, look, there was strong evidence of racial profiling. And since that time, there have been a number of decisions where that's been identified. Most recent, the Supreme Court of Canada, just May of last year in a case called Lee, what they found, it was a situation in which a police officers went into the backyard. There were 4 Black guys, 1 Asian guy. No basis to really go in, no warrant to search, no basis to detain. But ultimately, they demanded the guys identify themselves, asked of one guy what's in his bag. The guy took off. They ultimately grabbed him. They found a gun there and ultimately found some drugs. What the court found is, look, the reasonable person in the position of these accused, recognizing that the history has shown strong problems in racial profiling, over attention to people of minorities. It's been identified, Human Rights Commission, all kinds of other studies would have reason to believe I'm being discriminated against and I'm being arbitrarily detained. There will be evidence out. And they recognize this has gone back and established pretty much what's called judicial notice. It's so well established that the reasonable person who took the time to research it would find there's really no dispute about it. All kinds of studies, but the key is, Mike, going back decades and decades.
So, and this just sort of verifies the actual claim about the imbalance that we've had in our legal system and with those who actually conduct themselves as officers of the law. So it is systemic. I think in this case, could you not say that is a very accurate word for what has happened in our society?
Systemic is the word, and I've seen it mentioned on TV. I think a couple people from the States used the phrase, "Oh, it's just a few bad apples." Well, that's something that's recognized there in terms of studies too, but that's just really an excuse. That's a way that can undermine public confidence in the way in which police do their jobs. And that clearly it's not a few bad apples, it's not a bad basket. It may well be problems in the orchard, and the orchard goes across Canadian and American lines. And that isn't to say that the majority of police officers show this kind of tendency, but on the other hand, is it problematic enough to pick up on that word, Mike, that is systemic? Yeah, that's the word that's been well accepted.